Okay, next up we're going to have a presentation on professionalism, the importance of bar leadership, and the Leadership Academy. Adriannette Williams is the new Assistant Director of the Henry Latimer Center for Professionalism at the Florida Bar. Ms. Williams joins the Florida Bar from a civil litigation background. She has extensive experience in higher education, instruction, curriculum, development, and civic leadership. She's worked in higher education since 2007. Kevin McNeill is a partner in the law firm of McRae and McNeil, based in Lake City. Mr. McNeil is a skilled litigator with an active trial practice serving individuals living in the north central Florida counties. He focuses practices on individuals and families whose lives have been changed as a result of injury in motor vehicle accidents, slip, trip, fall incidents, or by wrongful death of a loved one. Mr. McNeil also handles cases involving property damage and the rights of debtors. And without further ado, I'll have them come up. Thank you.
How are you guys doing this afternoon? Good. I know you guys have eaten lunch, so I'm going to need you guys to come alive for me for just a few minutes. I know it's settling in. As you guys know, my name is Adriannette Williams. I'm the Assistant Director of the Florida Bar. My director, Rebecca Bandy, is back there in the corner. There she is, in the back of the room. So I just want to thank you guys for being with us today. I have unfortunately had to sit in on a lot of meetings like this, and I know sometimes you guys can be distracted. So hopefully some of the information that I'll give to you today about what we do, we're very, very excited about the direction we're going. You will find some of it useful, and you will be able to use it in your sections as you go forward today. Just to give you a quick overview, so this is the boring part, but if you can stay awake for this, I'll give you the highlights at the end, if you will. The Professionalism Department, the center was created by a mandate from the Florida Supreme Court Justice. It was because there was a public view of the legal field being in a steep decline of professionalism, and they were concerned that lawyers were only complying with the minimal standards of ethics. So basically barely doing what needed to do. Some of the overview of what lawyers were sneaky, money grubbing, and willing to manipulate to win. Does that sound like us? No, it's not us, it's them. Not us in the room, right? So in 1996, the Center for Professionalism was created, and it was fully staffed in March of 1997. Now, if you notice, it's not called just the Center for Professionalism. It's named after a gentleman named Henry Latimer. He was distinguished in our legal field. He was an African-American attorney, remembered for service to his family, very kind. I never met him, but any attorney who I've met who knows him always has to say great things to say about him. And Hillary was one of the ones who told me some great things about him. So it's an honor to have a center named after him. He also mentored thousands of attorneys along his path. And so it's an honor to work for a center that's named after him that upholds those type of ideals. As you can imagine, unlike the minimal standards of ethics, professionalism is upholding the highest ideals of our legal profession, being civil, treating one another nice, and fair. One of the things that we found is that some attorneys say, oh, it's that edge. It gives me an edge to do this and do that. Well, some of those cheap shots that used to be okay are not okay. And I'll talk about some of the ways that attorneys find themselves in trouble because they're not adhering to these new standards that we have, because the answer of that's the way it's always been done is no longer acceptable in our profession. So thank you guys for following me through that history. Now I'm here to talk about what we do. First of all, just one word, service. We're here to serve you. So if you have any sort of presentation that you need done, or you're writing something on professionalism, we can help with that. Myself, I come from a higher education background, writing curriculum, and so does our director. So if you need help with anything that has to do with putting together presentations, or you need someone to present on particular topics, and I'll talk about some of the topics that we've done, we are here to help with that. Can someone help me with time? I don't want to go over my time. Okay. The other thing we do besides speaking is we have the Standing Committee on Professionalism, which is the workhorse behind the Commission on Professionalism, which was created by the Supreme Court of Florida. And I'll go on to some of the things that the Commission does, which you may find interesting. You may want to attend some of the events that we have, so I'm going to go over kind of the highlights of that, as well as we have the Student Admission to the Bar Committee that we do, which is called CBEC. Excuse me, let me get that right. Student Education and Admission to the Bar Committee. Now, with the Standing Committee on Professionalism, we have our awards working group. So one of the things that we do is we have 3 awards that we give out every year at the Presidential Luncheon. Those are very prestigious awards, and it's a big honor to receive it. And we work to nominate individuals who are well deserving of those awards. And we award a faculty member at a law school. We also award a professionalism group. And then we also award one to a judge. It was very cute this year. Our judge decided not to tell his wife, and he surprised her when she got there. And she looked over and she said, "It's you, I knew it." So it was very cute. And it was a big deal because the award was named after a particular judge, and the judge was his friend. So he was very, very excited to have worked and earned that award. So as you can see, we do take a look, and we try to not only reprimand individuals at the Florida Bar, we try to recognize when people do something good. And so if you know someone or you are thinking of that, we do have a nomination committee, so you may want to consider that in the future. Now, the other things that we do are programs and seminars. It is now required for new attorneys to take a Practicing with Professionalism course. The director just taught one. I had to attend one myself. She did a really good job, as a matter of fact. And then we had a Professionalism Workshop, and that's kind of I call it our class for wayward attorneys, and that's for attorneys who have been in trouble with the Florida Bar. And so usually it's a tandem course that the assistant director and director both teach, but I don't know if I offended our director, but I had to teach the whole thing by myself for 4 hours with attorneys who don't feel like they did anything wrong. So that was interesting, but still a good exercise. So by the end of that class, it was attorneys who were saying, thank you. We serve as a refresher course, and I'm not there to come and throw out the hammer. You already know you're in trouble with the Florida Bar. It's not my job to make that even worse, or rub salt in your wound. But what I always try to do is give them more tools, because usually what happens is if you read through while they're there, it's some sort of situation where they're backed up against the wall and they have a lot of stress and they're trying to manage a lot of things at one time. They're dropping balls in certain areas, and then they find themselves in a bad situation. So it's not a lot of bad lawyers doing bad things. It's just sometimes it's people who are not making the best decisions because they don't have all the tools. So my job is to kind of give them more tools to deal with. And that is just that was the practicing PPEP course is what we call it. The next thing I want to talk about is the Supreme Court. I already talked about that. We're not going to even go through that. One of the things that I do want to talk about that is coming up is we have a stakeholders working group that is Friday, October 19th, 2018, and that's in Tampa at the Florida Bar's fall meeting. Chief Justice will be in attendance, and this was headed by one of our committee members, Tim Chinaris, and what we're discussing is the issues that law students deal with. So it's basically all the stakeholders who are dealing with law students, from individuals who work for the bar, individuals who work for the Florida Bar Examiners, which is the test you have to take to even get over to the bar, as all you guys know, deans of law schools. So we're dealing with issues like, what do you do when a student gets a DUI in law school? Because they've already passed character and fitness sometimes, and then there are issues that come up. So we want to have some kind of outline on the way we're dealing with these issues, and I think it's awesome that Tim had the foresight to bring this to us, and we have pushed it to the forefront of discussion issues. Now, with that being said, I just wanted to give you an overview of some of the work that we're doing is not just professionalism. One of the things that our director, Rebecca Bandy, is getting trained in right now is emotional intelligence, because this is the most stressful field. This is the highest, they report the highest levels, lawyers report the highest levels of not being satisfied in their job. We have very high levels of drug abuse and substance abuse. And those are the things that we kind of sweep under the table. And also mental illness. And sometimes students are afraid to report those things to the board of bar examiners for fear that they will never be able to be a lawyer. Or if you do find yourself in a situation where you have some sort of mental disorder or depression or whatever it may be, you're afraid to say something for the sake of you want to save your career and your job, because we have families and you don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. But I applaud the Florida Bar, because what we're doing right now is making it a more open door for those individuals to seek help without the fear of repercussion for that. And so that's another thing we discussed, because that can tie into professionalism as well. You may have an issue and you know you have an issue, and you may not do your job well because you have not addressed that issue. So those things intersect. So those are things that we are working to address with the Florida Bar and with individuals that we come into contact with, but also with emotional intelligence. You're talking about knowing yourself and knowing others that you're dealing with in a way that you can interact more civil with them. And that was one of the highlights of doing the class for wayward attorneys, I say, is that we take a test and then we talk about, okay, so now when you walk into a room and you see someone who is like this, what are some ways you can deal with this? Or what happens when you have a judge who is just being a jerk to you? How can you deal with that, you know, instead of acting in a way that's going to get you in trouble as well? We talk about those things, and one of the cool things is we have a judge present for that course who can answer questions for them right on the spot. So as you can see, we have a lot going on. If you look down, I tried to hand out some information for you. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the local professionalism panel, booklet, pamphlets, because a lot of times attorneys' conduct may not rise to the level of what we think they should be reported to the bar. But the cool thing about the local professionalism panel is it was created by that Commission on Professionalism under the Supreme Court. And what can happen is you can refer them to a panel of peers in the circuit. That means it's local, it's a local issue, and it can be dealt with accordingly. If they find that it's something that's egregious and that it should be passed on to the Florida Bar, it is. But sometimes just bringing it to the attorney's attention, or making them write a letter of apology, or go back and fix, or call that client that they haven't called in 4 months, even though that that person has called 3 times a day for the past 3 months and has not gotten an answer. Those are the type of things we want to see if we can curtail without an attorney getting in trouble. So as you can see, we're trying to do everything we can to be preventative instead of reactive. And that's why we're here today. Some of the presentations that we've done so far, even in like the past 3 months, is Rebecca did a presentation on professionalism at FSU for orientation. She did a presentation at UF. She did an emotional intelligence seminar in Destin, and she's doing one in Naples for emotional intelligence. I think she gets the good places. And that'll be next week. Some of the things that I've talked about was the privilege walk, and that was something that I worked in tandem with McNeill on when I first started. The next thing I did was the course that I just talked about, the Practicing Professional Enhancement program, as we like to call it. I went back to my law school, Cooley Law School, and I talked to them about the importance of professionalism and how it starts at the level of being a law school student, not just when you get sworn into the Florida Bar. You have to start making good decisions, and if you start with that foundation, then it's easy to make those decisions in the future. And never forget that your professionalism is tied to your paycheck. If you don't forget that, you'll usually do well. Other presentations I presented in Fort Myers twice last month. Once on a case for diversity. That title of that presentation was A Charge to Keep: How to Align, Advocate, and Be Authentic in Embracing Diversity and Inclusion within the Florida Bar in our profession. And finally, I did a presentation for the Office of Criminal Conflict. If you don't remember anything else, remember we are here to serve you. If there's anything we can do for you, that's why I handed you the cards. Please feel free to contact us. If you have a question, we're here to answer those questions. And we're just looking forward to understanding the importance of professionalism and being a leader. It's imperative to our growth and our positive outlook and the way we interact with each other in the legal field. So, I mean, this is a big, I always look at the, it's a blessing to be an attorney, because I say this to everybody, you sometimes are the only attorney that somebody knows, which means that you could be the only person in between justice and injustice for someone. So it's a big charge to keep. Thank you, guys.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin McNeill. I am the immediate past chair of the Leadership Academy. Every time I say that, it sounds better and better, immediate past chair. I guess it's kind of like saying grandparent, you know. You can send the kids home at night, you don't have to worry about anything, you're relaxed all the time, there's a big smile on your face. The Leadership Academy has been around for 5 years now. I think that the Leadership Academy is one of the most important programs that the Florida Bar has instituted within the last certainly 5 years, but maybe 10 years. And that's because the goal of the Academy was to increase a diverse population of lawyers that were ready to be leaders. And as you all know, that issue of diversity has been around in the legal profession since the early 70s. And while diversity has increased, the key aspect of inclusion has not necessarily kept pace. But the Leadership Academy addresses that. I was going to say fixes that, because I am a true cheerleader of the Leadership Academy. But let's say addresses that. And that is because of the success of the fellows. As I was preparing for this presentation, I did some research. The Leadership Academy has, in its graduates, already 3 members who are on the Florida Bar Board of Governors. There are 14 members who are on the YLD Board of Governors. There are 3 Leadership Academy fellows who are currently running for county or circuit court judge. There's 1 sitting circuit court judge. There are board certified attorneys. There are attorneys littered throughout legal elite and in rising stars. There have been Leadership Academy graduates who have led sections like government lawyers, entertainment, arts, and sports law, on and on, voluntary bar associations, the 8th Judicial Circuit. So the lawyers that you all send, the sections, the divisions, the committees, are magnificent lawyers. And when they go through the program, those leadership skills are enhanced. And what we hope they do is come back to your sections, come back to their committees, back to their local bar associations, and at least get in the pipeline to lead. Let me give you some background now that I'm stepping off of the soapbox. The Leadership Academy was begun around 2012. It was Gene Pettis's idea. The Board of Governors acknowledged that idea, ratified it, and it's been in effect ever since. Renee Thompson was the first chair, and then she was followed by Juliette Murphy-Rulak, and then I was the 3rd chair. We are this year celebrating a milestone, 2 milestones actually. We've graduated our 5th class, which means that we have approximately 240 graduates, and for the first time in our history, the Leadership Academy is being led by 2 former graduates. John Howe of Class 1, he's from Palm Beach County, and Anthony Visone of Class 2, who's from, I believe, Port St. Lucie. So we're very proud of that, and we think that that is kind of how it's supposed to be. The graduates, the fellows of the Academy take over leadership roles and push the Academy forward. Now, having said that, let me talk to you a little bit about what the Leadership Academy does. It's a 6-session program which lasts the full year. It started at the annual convention, and the graduation of Class 6 will be at the next annual convention. The sessions run from Friday afternoon to Saturday afternoon. And during that time, there are presentations. And those presentations are on leadership skills. They learn about aspects of the Florida bar, such as what you're doing here today. And they learn about themselves. We start each year with a DISC assessment, and we also have emotional intelligence. We also have a privilege walk. And the idea is to get to know yourself and get to know people that you're going to deal with so that you can be a more effective leader. We also encourage all of the fellows to, I don't want to say market themselves, but network with the people that are in their class. The class is now made up of 30 individuals. And so part of our curriculum is to have those educational and training sessions, but to also for each meeting to have at least a set-aside time where the fellows can market or can network with one another and with people in their local bar. It takes lawyers that you believe are primed for leadership. It makes them better leaders. It helps them create a network. And then it sends them back into the Florida bar to practice what they've learned, to practice what each of you are doing here today. So I want to thank you for your time. And if you have any questions about the Leadership Academy, there's a Leadership Academy committee on the website. You can reach out to any one of them. Please follow us on Twitter at Florida Bar Academy. And in each of your areas during the course of the year, we'll be reaching out to you to invite you to some of the networking events that we put on. Okay? Thank you very much.